Good morning. What is great, good, and real? And welcome to day 28 of the Do You Rules live stream experience. I am your host, Cliche Jeff. Did I just say Jeff? I don't even know what I just said, but I almost don't feel like I'm doing what I'm doing right now, which is sort of scary. But I asked a question today. Why is it so easy for us to not believe? I think that's a really good question to ask. It has me wondering, why is it so difficult for us to believe? And I feel like it's obnoxiously cold. I can't get my hands warm. Such is the life again of the live experience. Let's do a sanity check, or at least a rhythm and pattern and habit check. We'll start today with the chapstick. It's there. Losing its lust. If you were on yesterday, then you know that I said I can't turn it anymore. Doesn't seem to have much juice left. Much juice left. This is a bottle of water. Let's crack it so it's ready. Here is our lovely red book. And I don't have, I wanted to bring out some material I read yesterday, but I didn't bring my book down. I did finish reading The Lives of the Stoics. Great book. Not so much what I expected, as far as it was almost like an overview of every single Stoic that lived, from Zenos, who started it, to Marcus Aurelius. I learned some things about Marcus Aurelius I didn't expect to learn. I got introduced to Marcus Aurelius through the movie Gladiator. I wasn't really educated around Stoicism or Rome or emperors or things like that in any other way. But I'll say that the book did open and broaden my scope into the continuation of thought and philosophy, mindset, how it can be conducive to a healthy lifestyle, a lifestyle of improvement. And if we're on a self-improvement journey towards 1,000 hours, or whatever amount of hours you're looking to put in, then that book does offer a lot of, excuse me, powerful tools, powerful words, and powerful messages. Intentionality around living opens you up to, you're talking about before even, it's like 87 BC, 100, it's a long time ago. And what's interesting is, you consider this, all those years ago, there were people answering or trying to answer questions we still might be asking ourselves today. Sort of like what I wrote down here, which is, what does it mean to not believe? What does it mean to not believe? Let's do this before I forget. What time is it? Good morning, Siri. Thank you for talking to me today. What does it mean to not believe? I sort of wrote that down. I'm still feeling the effects of this illness. I bit the bullet and took Theraflu yesterday. I hate taking medication. I also researched. I haven't gotten into sort of I don't know if I'll get into the holistic approach. I think that medication is good to use because it can help the body when the body is deficient. However, I would like some more natural remedies. I looked up without even realizing it, it was served to me, the flu bomb or something like that, to help with illnesses. And it's, I think, like 3 cloves of garlic, which, man, you're gonna need some mints after that. Some turmeric, black powder, some honey and boiling water, something to that effect. And they say take that every day for 2 weeks, and your liver and your respiratory system, it's like everything gets refreshed. So I will try that. But back to the point, as I ramble myself into comfort and think about the question. Oftentimes, I believe we talk about belief and we convince ourselves to believe and we affirm ourselves into believing. I was just watching a Bob Proctor video about the power of accomplishing whatever it is you want to accomplish in your life, the God-given right, and how if you would just put your mind to it and all the things that come in this space, the improvement process, the manifestation process, the awakening process, the spiritual process, however you want to label it and title it. And it makes me wonder deeply, why do we need so much convincing? Does that ever cross your mind? Like, if we could really be whatever it is we want to be, and we believe that deeply, and that is our God-given right, and the energy with which we vibrate at birth, then what is it about life that brings us into some sort of crossroad where we don't believe? Why do we need convincing to believe? What exactly do we need convincing in? What exactly don't we believe in? I'm left to consider these questions and thoughts and ideas because it crosses my mind. Does it not cross your mind? Do you not sit and wonder to yourself, have we become so distracted as a world and a society and a culture that we don't think these things maybe as much as we should? That we don't contemplate? If we're on a self-improvement journey and we have to question whether or not we believe, are we improving? Are we trying to improve? At what point did we stop improving? At what point do we reach levels in life of stagnation, of stasis? Why do we find ourselves more comfortably in the space of not believing? I don't know how to answer that, but I wonder it because I believe if I approach any conversation with any standard human, for the most part, I think there are some folks which I'm learning. I like to have less of these conversations outside of fodder, outside of sharing thoughts and possibilities with those who are trying to explode out of this mindset, because I believe that's what you have to do in order to achieve what it is you're looking to achieve from a self-improvement perspective. And I even think that's a lazy way to title it, but I read something from the book yesterday that I think is positive. If you don't work on improving daily, you run the risk of regressing into the state of everyone else. And those are like those words. And I look around and I start to wonder and question, am I the only one seeing what I'm seeing? And the answer, of course, is yes, because I can only see what I see. However, and in the same way, we're all exposed to the same light. And left to that exposure, the ease of the conversation around why don't we believe stuns me. And the ease at which we accept that conversation, almost with an eagerness that we can't wait to listen from someone else on why they don't believe, that we can't wait to see someone else in a state of disbelief, because then what else is that if you don't believe? I'm just asking some questions. And again, maybe I'm at the point and at the juncture where I believe what I'm seeing so deeply that I can rationalize and reason what this is, but there could be a reality to where what I'm trying to rationalize and reason is so individualized, it's so outside of the crowd. I focus so intently on not regressing into what many others are. Maybe I've lied myself into believing that I'm somehow otherwise. Maybe I'm not. Maybe that's me with my disbelief. But it still leaves me with the question of, why is it so easy to not have belief? Is that some sort of default code or programming or exposure or mechanism? What is it? Consider the possibilities. that in all phases of your relational experience, this experience of life, that you could talk to someone as close as your spouse and significant other. You can knock on a neighbor's door. You can go into the office or the proverbial professional space, however your professional space is. I don't care where you work, how you work, but you start to interact and socialize. And you bring up the conversation of what you believe and what you don't believe, the ease at which we can discuss what we don't believe in, why we are where we are, and why we aren't where we want to be. Are so many of us, I question and I wonder, how many of us really are not content, are not at peace? How many of us are in a state of difficulty and disbelief? Because is ignorance so bliss? Is ignorance so bliss that you don't even realize you're in a state of disbelief? And I don't even know if from an energy vibration that you're at a low frequency and a low vibe. It's just a reality of what are you seeing? What are you observing? How are you processing the state of your being? Are we in such a state of disbelief that we can't even see the state of disbelief? I'm just asking a question. So I wrote that down. What does it mean to not believe? Why is it so easy to not believe? And what are we not believing in? If we're on a journey towards self-improvement and we set a target, we set a goal, we set an aim, why don't we all reach the end of that target? Why don't we all hit our target? Why do we lose sight of what we're aiming at? If we believe and we know we can improve and we know we can achieve a level of success in our lives, then when asked a question about where we stand in our lives, contentment, peace, success, do we all answer with a reality that aligns with we have everything we said we want because we do everything we said we're going to do? Imagine that too, that we could wake, and I talk about this regularly as far as the virtuousness that I seek, the ethics and the discipline and the fortitude to just simply do what I said I was going to do. That's all. That's my baseline fundamental standard. If I get a day, if I get today, if God blesses me with a day, then I'm simply going to do what I said I was going to do. And what I said I was going to do is going to be very consistent with who I said I was going to be. I won't deviate regardless of circumstances, regardless of struggles, regardless of obstacles, regardless of disbelief, regardless of low energy, regardless of all these things that fracture us as we move towards whatever it is we think we're moving towards. I will do what I said I was going to do. And yet in that way, we find that people apparently have objectives, have visions, have goals, and yet don't execute on said vision, goals, and targets. Is that not then, can we not reason and say within in logical terms that there's a level of disbelief? What else? How else will we describe? How else will we describe? I talked about it yesterday. Yesterday was the second day out of 28 days where I haven't woken up at 3:30. Actually, it's the third because the first day of the year I woke up at 4. And then I had my epiphany. And from the 2nd of January on, I've been up at 3:30. But if you've given yourself a directive, I am going to do this because I said I'm going to do this, and I know the why. We're not naive and ignorant to the why. We understand the incentive. We can easily incentivize ourselves. It's funny, I wrote something down to the effect of yesterday. Let me see if I can find it because it just jarred me. Success is a tightrope, right? Okay. I don't know why I wrote it. I might have said it in my mind, but never wrote it down. If we all chase richness, why do we so comfortably chase richness? And richness in a dollar amount. Let's just make it simple and plain that way. I think it's obvious to surmise, excuse me, that the reason we chase a dollar amount of richness is because we presume it's going to make us happy. And so, in that way, there likely isn't a human that is walking the face of the earth, minus a few, because some folks might understand the difficulty that comes, because there's difficulty that comes with a dollar amount of richness. But before I get into that, we can agree that we all want to be rich. Why do you want to be rich? You want to be rich, stay rich, not just in dollars. We want to be rich because we know that that implies a level of happiness, contentment, and peace, success, and all the realizations of when you see me as rich, then you know I'm somebody. Does that not equate to that? Do we not all immediately say when someone is rich, they're somebody? They must have certain things I don't have. Is that true? Of course it's true. In what way though? It's material, naturally. Is it the material that we really strive for to make us happy? I don't know. Is it worth it? I don't know. I certainly wouldn't want to dilute that experience. I certainly don't want to say we shouldn't strive for that. But what we're trying to attain, I believe, naturally to think, is that when we can satisfy ourselves through richness, then we can satisfy our desire to be happy. So if that's true, that anyone, just about the large majority of the world, when given the option, do you want to be financially rich or financially poor? Or financially rich or not? That you could have whatever you want in money and you could struggle a bit. What are you choosing? And are you choosing it just to be able to have? What are you looking to have? It's got to be happiness. So at that minimum, we can align and associate richness with happiness. We can make the argument that we're all searching to be happy. So if we're all looking to be happy, why don't we believe that we can be happy? Is it only money that makes us happy? I'm just asking a question. What does it mean to not believe? Why is it so easy to not believe? Right? Where are you today? Day 28 in. That you could believe so much in what it already is that you can't believe enough to make it different. That you could believe so much in what it already is that you could believe you don't deserve different. That you could believe so much in what it already is that you could not believe in yourself. That's what this equates to. Think about the logic. Think about what we're saying to ourselves when the baseline fundamental of I'm simply going to improve my life because I said I would improve my life regardless of what it takes to improve my life. I'm going to do what it takes, and then I don't do it. And in that same way, when you don't do it, it's very easy to accept that within ourselves. And then it's very easy to discuss it with our crowds. Pick a crowd you're in. Especially if you're in a less fortunate crowd. I've come from some of the most least fortunate circumstances that is available in American culture. The environment I grew in, the type of broke mentality, poverty mentality, exposure to a lot of darkness. I don't want to get into too much detail. I don't want to demean it and dilute the experience of life from the perspective of it's just unfortunate. There's haves and have-nots, and then there's levels to having not or not having. And as far as the scale of not having, I've seen pretty much. You talk about the precipice of full brokenness. I've tasted that, and of course I don't want that. And I believe there's no one having been exposed to that. There's no one in there who's not like, oh man, if I could just, and yet we don't. We don't. So what does it mean to not believe? Why is it so easy? Which also got me to thinking, why are we more comfortable sharing failures than success? You think about the crowds and you think about where you're at. Let me set a timer here. Set a timer for 5 a.m. Okay. 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 Rhythms and vibes were flowing. It's great to be alive. Let me offer you that if you're struggling in a way. I try to warm. I got my blanket. I forgot to tell you I got my blanket. My hands are just absolutely freezing. Trying to warm myself up. I can, oh, man, because I wonder sometimes, and I listen, and I listen, and I'm inspired. Right? I listen, and I find solace in knowing I could easily not believe, and it's just very comfortable going back into a state of disbelief. But also, I believe at this juncture in my life, I've already awakened enough to know that I can't revert back into that state of disbelief because I'll never be able to live with myself. And one of the things that inspired me yesterday, I talked about it somewhat slightly and a bit tangentially without getting into detail, was the fact that ignorance really is bliss. And I mean that humbly and respectfully because I can't help but think about all the things I still don't know. And the more exposure I get, the more that I learn and the more that I indulge in the possibility of believing, the more I see how easy disbelief is. The more I expose myself into the power of possibility, the more I realize how difficult and how rare the achievement of said possibilities are. And in that way, specific to knowledge and wisdom, excuse me for a second. It's 4:44 a.m. I'm back, and yet 4:44 and 34 seconds. That would have been cool if it was 4:44 and 44 seconds, because things like that excite me. And I would say something like, "That is the universe talking to me. It is a sign." Probably not. Maybe it is. I don't know. But from the perspective of the power of possibility and trying to be respectful of where I'm at and being open to the reality that what I might distinguish and determine and label as being awake, understanding somewhat the spiritual level of life, the ease at which we remain blissfully ignorant, could also be ignorant from the perspective of if it's difficult for me to socialize and articulate the experience I'm having with many others, or there's a select few, then maybe it's me. Maybe it's me and not you. If there's a crowd, think about that logically too. If there's an average, doesn't the average and the crowd suggest that it's not necessarily negative or it's not necessarily a bad thing, for lack of being able to come to terms with better words? What does it mean to be in the crowd? Why is it okay then to step out of the crowd? Could that suggest that when you step out of the crowd, you are the one that is somewhat, maybe dare I even say, on a path of less success because everyone else is doing it this way? Does, and is that comfort, or is that a reality that, well, this is probably the better way to do it? Wouldn't the crowd and the app, because in a lot of data, you look at data, you talk about making data look the way you want it to look. In any form of business, I mean, I say any, but in most forms of business, if you say you can get 99% of people to do it this way, then you would suggest that that's a pretty successful thing. Yet in that way, we say that 99% of people don't have access to the type of money that the 1 or the 2% have. So therefore, they are what? Most everybody is on one side of the scale. Does that mean that only 2% of people are actually happy? Or does it mean that the other 98% who haven't achieved are actually doing it more right? Who's to say that being rich is better? I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, back to the one of the analogies I was reading as far as learning, understanding, observing the possibility of awakening. The more I seek truth, the more I seek knowledge, the more I seek a specific lifestyle that I believe leads to wisdom. Like wisdom is the greatest gift. I'm learning for myself. It could not be for you, whatever. The more you realize you don't know. So in that way, if you consider a cup, and a lot of the cliche around this is be careful who you let pour into your cup, and be careful who you let pour into your cup. It's more around be careful that you don't walk around with your cup full. Hear what I'm trying to say. If you believe, we're talking about not believing, but now let's get into the possibility of belief. If you believe you know everything there already is to know, then you're walking around with a full cup. And what happens when you believe you know everything you need to know and you walk around with a full cup? When somebody goes to pour into your cup something you may not know, because I assure you, there is something you do not know. I assure you, you are not going to know everything you need to know, nor are you going to know everything there is to know, because it is literally impossible, because we are limited in that way. And also the audacity of you to believe that you, as a finite being with limitations and flaws, could know everything there is to possibly know. How ignorant can we possibly be that we could believe that we know everything, and that our opinion, our biases, belief, and prejudices, because that's what it is. It's just what you know because you think you know it, how you think you know it, so therefore it's true. It's only true to you. It's not true for everyone. But anyway, I digress from the perspective of the audacity of you, the arrogance and the ignorance to think that you really do know everything. But okay, fine. You believe that you believe what you believe. So in that way, when you're walking around with your full cup, when somebody goes to pour in something new, you overflow, which means what? What you could have experienced, you will not experience because you're walking around with a full cup. And so in that way, you could also be walking around with a full cup of disbelief. And because you're walking around with a full cup of disbelief, and it's so easy for you to not believe, and it's so easy for you to discuss your disbelief, that when somebody goes to pour belief into you, you can't hear it because you know everything. Because you're so secure that everything you believe is everything you need to know. And that's when we get into this routine as a society and culture and crowd of people of judgment, envy, and jealousy and coveting, of gossiping, complaining, this rationalization and reasoning of disbelief. And I believe, when faced with that, we can't confront it because we've already accepted belief of the disbelief. And then we reinforce it regularly in our own minds, in how we speak to ourselves, and how we treat ourselves, and how we move around as ourselves, and then how we go about our business of relationally experiencing life. Whether it's intimate, I talk about this. This is like, I could just use the same analogies and just put different words and layer it, because it's all the same. Not it's all the same thing, but it is relative in that way. Patterns, habits, behaviors, identities. It all is reinforced to you. That's why I don't waste my time trying to debate with somebody who is fully and blissfully ignorant. There's no sense. Your cup's already full. You don't want to hear it. So therefore, I have nothing to say to you. In that same way, my cup is, if it's half full, that's too much. I don't want you pouring none of that into my cup. Keep your ignorance, your negativity, your hate, your jealousy, your weakness, your disbelief away from me. Do not pour it in my cup. Do not spill it anywhere around me. I don't want to trip and fall on it. I don't want to be infected with it. It's a disease to me. And in that way, I'm unapologetic. I'm unapologetic. Because also in the same way, if I take the time to go and put in the diligence to believe what I believe and build a security in what I believe. I don't want none of your insecurities. I'm already insecure enough. That's part of it. Like a lot of folks misconstrue the realization of I want to talk positively. I want to vibrate at a high level. I want to speak my truth in a way that is confident and that shows resilience and stamina and discipline and fortitude and excess of love, excess of belief, excess that I am everything I say I am, and that's not narcissistic. We wanna just look at that and watch that and judge it and critique it because it's so different from what we think we need to do. I'm somehow the one that has a problem. I'm not even trying to bring it to you. I'm just saying that leave me alone. Let me create my bubble in my energy space. Let me be me how I want to be me. Let me love on me how I want to love me. Let me create my own little force field of life and love. And if it doesn't vibe and flow with you, that's cool. Bounce off. Let it go. Don't pour into my cup. I don't want to pour into your cup. I don't want to have nothing to do with you. I don't need you to want to have nothing to do with me. And guess what? I can still show you love. Matter of fact, I would argue that's me showing you love. Because in the same way, I don't want nothing from you that doesn't jive with who I am. I don't need to be giving me to you if it doesn't jive with who you are. I'm not ignorant in that way. I'm not going to say, I don't believe you're good for me. That also means I'm not good for you. I'm good with that. No, there's no hate. There's no hate. There's no animosity. There's no friction for me. It just is. It just is. And guess what? I can also agree that maybe I'm blissfully ignorant. And I am in a way because there's still what? So much more I need to know. So while I'm in my way to know, while I'm in my own way and realizing that and dealing with the possibility that I need to improve every day. Why? Because if I don't, then I could fall into a pattern of disbelief. And I have enough disbelief. I am in tuned, aligned, and in the face of disbelief at all times. I can feel it at all times. It's the way I said to I was having this conversation with my wife. And I was listening to something as far as like an awakening. And I was kind of sort of feeling this, but I didn't know how to sort of rationalize this. But here's the reality, right? As my children would say, I run the risk of crashing out. You about to crash out, Unc? They call me the egg. They call me egg. They call me Unc. They call me all kinds of things. Are you at risk of crashing out? Absolutely. Why? Because I can rage just like you. It doesn't, like, I'm not trying to say it in a way like, that makes me a threat to you, or if you're a threat to me. It's like, we got to be a little more mature about the emotional experience and the realization of, I'm just saying, you go do you, let me do me. And if you're in my way, I can rage just how you can rage. I can be ignorant just how you can be ignorant. And I choose to really fight not being that way. And because I have to fight it, because I know what it does, it creates disbelief, anxiety, stress. It makes me question what I'm doing, which then when I'm this lesser version of myself, it creates conflict with the people I really love, the bubble of life I'm trying to create. I have to fight that every day. Every single day I have to fight about, I don't want to be in a state of disbelief because it's easy to not believe. It's easy to not do what I said I was going to do because I only tell myself what to do when I know I need to do certain things, because the things I need to do are things that will improve me. And so because I know I need to constantly do things that need to improve me, I know how difficult it is to do things that are going to continually improve me. I want none of the, I'd rather be ignorant in that way. And I'll even accept that. I'll even accept that you believe that I'm fucking losing my mind. That's cool. Let me lose it. But at least I can create some sort of belief around my disbelief. At least I can create an awareness around my disbelief. At least I can create the reason and rationalize that I'm going through this experience and I got to do something about it. Because the alternative is to do nothing. And what happens when we do nothing? We get the same thing we've been getting. I don't want any of that. I'd rather even be ignorant to the perspective of, or from the perspective of, at least if I attempt something different is going to happen. Because left to do nothing, left doing nothing. One of the other things I wrote down here as we're pushing against time, Thank God I feel, I complained yesterday on the live about the frustration with my respiratory issues. I still feel a little sick. I'm still feeling the remnants. I didn't want to necessarily take that NyQuil, but I knew it would make me feel better. Thank God I have access to that. I think a lot of times we believe, and we got to be careful with what we put in our bodies. I care about my body a lot because I need my body to live. So in that way, I don't want to be ignorant, but also when I'm suffering, do I leave myself suffering? I went a couple of days with no medication. I didn't know about. I was ignorant to that flu bomb, right? The garlic, the turmeric, the pepper, the hot water, lemon, and honey. I think those are some of the things I forgot from earlier as I reflected on what I was talking about. But hey, I'm open to that. I'm open to that. I'm open to all possibilities. I'm open to also believing that while my cup, that's why I keep my cup half full, quarter full. Because what I believe right now could change tomorrow. I said it before. I have that right because I put in the work to know that I'm open. I broaden my scope out to all the possibilities that I believe God and Creator offers us, so that in that way I don't miss nothing. That's like the idea that your cup might be full, and you don't want to hear nothing from nobody else because I'm just like you and you're just like me. Who am I? You're right. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Who am I to suggest that you should live your life differently? I'm nobody to suggest you should live your life differently. I'm still trying to figure out how to live my life differently. And because I haven't figured out and settled on how I want to live my life from the perspective of, okay, I have some principles, some values, some ethics, some morals, some values. And I align with that. But there's still a lot of things I don't know. And there's still a lot of decisions that I fluctuate on. And there's still a lot of things that permeate that I question myself about. So in that way, I gotta maintain a level of steady and focus to realize I'm still not that person that I want to be. So in that way, I know that you might not be the person you want to be, or if you are and you said, yo, Jeff, I'm already that person. Fine, go be that person. Go be that person. There's nothing for me to say. In the same way, you already actualized, you're already where you at, and you good. You, if anything, I'm sure I could take something from you, but in the same way, I got to keep my cup a quarter full, half full, because I have a lot of things I need to learn more. My point to all that was this. It's not just another human, which you see me as another you're just another dude, right? I'm trying to appreciate that if God is all, God is you. So I don't really want to dismiss you arbitrarily from the perspective of, like, we're all going through this experience together, are we not? Yeah, we experience it individually. Yeah, there's an ego. That's my timer. Yeah, there's all these things that make it personalized, but I am you and you am I, and all is God. We talk that game, but we don't really live that game, because then there wouldn't be as much conflict between us as there is. It's not to suggest that we should all kumbaya and get along all the time, because then in the same way, life will be boring. I'm not suggesting that. But we shouldn't have this level of turmoil, this level of friction, this level of hate for our neighbors. Love thy neighbor. We'll read the book. We'll recite the book. We'll talk about it, but we don't live it as much as we possibly do. My point to all that is I get tangential, is this. Forget the fact that you could possibly learn something from another human, that human who could be the same as you, which is God. What if God, I said this yesterday, what if God calls on you in a different way? What if God sends a message in a different way? What if God is trying to speak, but you're walking around with your cup full? I'm just asking the question. Whatever you believe in. What if what you could, what if what you wanted to believe in, because the question is, why don't we believe? What if what you were looking to believe in was coming your way, but you're walking around with your cup full? You're going to miss it. And then you're going to complain about it. Why are we more comfortable sharing our failures than success? Maybe that's a conversation for another day. Maybe this has gone so good. I feel great. Man, I feel great. What am I trying to accomplish here? I'm trying to feel great about myself and reveal to you a possibility of how, if we're all the same and we all have possibilities, and you're not necessarily vibrating a lot of greatness and happiness, because that's what it is. It doesn't have to be money. Not to say I don't want it. Not to say I don't. It's not necessarily a craving. I'll accept whatever it is. I'll accept all of it. I'm open to all of it. I am not dismissive of nothing. That's why my cup is not full. But I offer you my experience as just one regular dude. I'm one regular dude, just like you. I am the same. I am no different. I am the same. I am no different. But in a lot of ways, because I am the same and I am no different, I've gone through my a lot of turmoil. I worry deeply about additional turmoil. I've gone through despair. I worry deeply about continuing to go through despair. I've lost some. I worry deeply about really losing a lot. I've It's been hard. I worry about it getting harder. And so because I can't predict what's going to happen, and because fate is fate and is unpredictable, and we talk about these things regularly, and there's some things you're just unprepared for. It doesn't mean you can't prepare. That's what it is. So I look to offer myself the possibility that I can believe, in turn, try to radiate that out to you and see what happens. See what happens. If for no other reason than continuing to hold ourselves accountable, continuing to move in the direction of belief, and continuing to enjoy to the maximum that we can all the possibilities that life could offer us, right? Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich. Ooh.